This is Grand Theft Auto V. We're taking a look at the next-gen version of the game on the PlayStation 5. So be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So you're probably wondering what kind of options we're getting here on the PS5, and there are three choices. We're going to be focusing on just the online mode because, well, basically I didn't pick up the story mode for the PlayStation version of the game. Didn't really feel the need to. But I will mention, if you did buy the story mode and you are wondering why you're downloading GTA Online, that's just kind of how it works. You'll get to the main menu, and it'll give you an option to primarily play the online, or tab over to play the single-player option. So just keep that in mind. And the experience we're talking about here for the improvements is kind of carried forward between the different versions. So, yeah, I thought I killed two. Oh, there's somebody that hit that car there. Okay. Cool. Just going to get rid of this body, then we're going to start driving, we're going to talk about the game. So we got three different modes that you can enjoy from the settings, and you can switch between at any point in time. You go down to display, we have performance, we have fidelity, and we have performance RT. So on fidelity, as we move around here, this is a native 4K resolution, 30 FPS, with the kind of ray tracing effect. So the ray tracing in this game is just shadows. Very light shadows, a very, very subtle effect. Nothing past that. Very straightforward. All versions have HDR support, which, actually looks fine on this and whatnot. And, yeah, so that's kind of what we're getting here. Native 4K, 30 FPS. This is not really the mode that I suggest playing, because if we are going to a next-gen version, it's the higher frame rate that's kind of what we're after. So then you can switch on the fly, and we can go over to the performance RT. So again, ray tracing is just very subtle shadow outlines, nothing else. It's barely even ray tracing, but it is technically, yes. So this is a 4K resolution target. It's 1440p is actually what we're getting here. So keep that in mind, it's 1440p. So that's what you're getting, 60 FPS at 1440p. Then when you switch to performance mode, you're also getting 1440p at 60 FPS. So, it's kind of like, it's probably going to be more perfect just going for performance mode, but I guess performance and performance RT, essentially the same thing. Except for performance RT has, really subtle shadows, so you might just be best to go with performance. It seems like it's a lock 60 FPS no matter what you're doing. So, pretty easygoing options in regards to the, kind of improvements for resolution, everything like that. So we're going to go on the map, and we're going to pick a little spot over here to head towards. It's a little bit weird on the PlayStation. I had to make a new character and everything like that because, well, I haven't actually played on the PlayStation side of things until I jumped in here to do the PS5 version. You can migrate your character, and your trophies and whatnot will pop. It is, a new game, so keep that in mind. So it's a fresh set of, trophies and unlockables and everything like that. So just so that you are aware, that is how that works. So other features that are present include I guess you would say the triggers, the kind of if you're driving, you could feel there's the tension and everything like that, the tension triggers. Same with the shooting stuff, it seems to be kind of integrated in there. Then there is the kind of, I guess, advanced haptics where you could feel the rumble of you driving along on the road. So that's kind of cool, you might find that kind of neat. I believe you can turn these things off. Now, there is a really annoying aspect to the game that I'm hoping they fix. So it will play the audio of everyone's microphones through your controller. So you can go to audio, and you can turn controller speaker and controller speaker volume off, but it doesn't actually turn it off. It still just plays regularly through your controller. So I had to actually go to the dashboard of the PlayStation 5, go into the settings, and I had to turn off the controller audio because I just don't want to hear everyone screaming and yelling and playing music through their mic and everything like that, so that it's going through my controller. That's crazy. So that really, really needs to be fixed. So other graphical things I wanted to mention is there is a fair bit of little pop-in and stuff in the environment. It does seem to really kind of show up to me, it, kind of is very present. There is some elements where some textures will be a little lower res, and then you get up close to them, and then they kind of, sharpen, but I haven't seen quite a whole lot of that on the PlayStation side of things, but I have noticed quite a bit of pop-in and stuff in the distance. The render distance is pretty good, the rendering's pretty fine, I think that's well handled. So it's mostly the audio thing that drives me nuts. There's also this really weird sort of like shade or shadow shade loading in. I'm going to try to find maybe a spot that has that actually on the map. So it's like these weird spots where you're driving along, I guess you would say maybe like a main street where there's like these borders. Anywhere there's like a border sticking up, you can see this like shadow line kind of loading as you're driving by, and it drives me crazy when it pops up. We'll try to trigger it. But yeah, those are the kind of options for graphics. And again, at any point you can go to the settings and you can switch between them. So 1440p 60, native 4K 30, 1440p 60, again assuming dynamic elements in play here. And we're just going to kind of leave it on performance. That's just kind of the way to go for me, at least gameplay wise. So you might be wondering, you know, what is GTA Online? Well, this is an open world experience where you are playing with others. You can set up private match options too. You can easily connect with others to do races, stunts, other sort of competitions. You can do heists, you can do lots of content. It continues to be expanded upon, upgraded, and changed over time. It's been kicking for, you know, a few generations now, which is kind of crazy to think about. You can go and you can play with friends, find randoms online, deal with them yelling through you, yelling at you through the controller, as someone was shooting me in the head while I wasn't playing, but they were yelling and making fun of me through the the microphone and being like, "Take that," as they were shooting me. So that was great, and you could hear their TV echoing through it. So that was fantastic. But yeah, it's actually like, you know, for this a really big part of this experience if you are looking to upgrade it. And I would say, you know, if you are planning on playing Grand Theft Auto in the next several years, I would highly suggest grabbing this version of the game at launch because it is going to be cheaper, and then the price increases over a period of time. So just keep that in mind, that is an aspect of play. I'm trying to like trigger that lighting thing. Might not be available because it's getting a little dark out. But yeah, so basically the price will increase over time. So it's kind of best to jump in, grab the game while it is cheaper. With that being said, you know, this isn't like a massive change. It's not like the game is being like completely upgraded. It's pretty minimal in terms of a massive upgrade to what this offers. Yeah, so the big thing here is that increased fluidity. It does make things feel a lot better. It makes the game handle a lot better. It definitely does improve the style of the experience. If you've been playing Grand Theft Auto on PlayStation for a while, 60 FPS is kind of what we've been after. So to finally have that increased fluidity is fantastic. It's definitely something that is highly appreciated. It feels way better. That's just basically the thing to really take from this. Is sure the controller, you know, kind of feels better and whatnot, and when this is another option, is you can shoot your gun, and if you have motion controls on, you can like shake your controller and it reloads, and there's some stuff for other vehicle things, but I guess that's old motion controls, but it's something funny to highlight. But the biggest thing here for this version is the fact that we finally get something that is running fluidly, and it does seem to be just fluidly locked. I mean, for that resolution target, I guess that's not really something that's too hardcore for this to be expected. I was anticipating, you know, maybe some better increases to traffic and whatnot. It really is just sort of a light remastering of this game. And that's where I said that big focus of, if you are planning on buying it, this is the version for this gen. You might as well just jump in. It's a lower cost point because later on you're going to have to actually pay for the full version, which can be, you know, not the best offering, right? I'm not sure people would necessarily want to have to fully buy the full version of this game. So if you are at that point but looking at buying this, it is somewhat more questionable in that regard because it is something where you're like, wow, that's not like a massive change to what this game is. So just, you know, keep that in mind. It's a lot of thinking about, you know, value now versus value later. And, you know, is this something you play a lot? Is this something you care about? Are you going to play this down the road, grab it now instead of waiting. It does have a ton of content. I would imagine that they are going to fully support this game and this version of it going forward as we continue to get closer to Grand Theft Auto 6 at some point down the road, because eventually it'll come. They've announced it, it's being worked on. So eventually that will release. So it's basically about thinking, hey, trying to think ahead, bridging the gap to that next release. If you don't care, it's fine too. I mean, I'm not bothered by it. But, it is just something to keep in mind. So I would say it does improve your experience quite a bit. This is very likely an upgrade that a lot of people have been wanting for a long time. It is very interesting how the story mode, which I think does look a little bit visually better, is so kind of thrown to the side. I think that's fascinating in favor of, something that has become basically a multiplayer only focused experience. Just keep that in mind, that is an aspect of it that has changed, is the fact that this is now totally geared towards Grand Theft Auto Online. That's what this is meant to be. So you can enjoy the thrills of the city, the crazy action, go on missions. The loading is improved, is actually really quite good in comparison to where it was. It's still not necessarily as fast as I was hoping for, but it takes a while to actually get in. It takes a while for certain kind of leaving areas and stuff, but some missions, some things are really, really quite quick. The character switching is supposed to be a lot smoother and everything like that, which is fantastic. They have also improved a lot of the lighting elements of the game, I feel. Explosions, fire, everything seems to run quite well and look quite good. Very happy with that aspect, which we'll show off here. Oh, never mind, I missed that guy. But I think that actually looks a lot nicer and is improved. Gameplay-wise, it definitely is, it's running smooth, even despite the explosions and crazy action. I've been playing numerous hours of this, taking it in and whatnot. So I am impressed by the improvements to the lighting and the look of the game. It is a lot cleaner. It is somewhat impressive in regards to the visual fidelity of the experience. I do think the performance mode is kind of a good option and the way I would suggest playing it. But you can come in here and you could do the native 4K and really, really get that clean, I guess you would say visual image if you want. But the whole point of getting this next-gen version is that 60 FPS. This is what I want. I want the game to feel really smooth. I want it to feel fluid. I do feel that maybe they could have been able to offer us a 120 Hz option. It feels almost limited, especially with a 1440p target. That seems... I feel this next-gen console should be able to deliver more, if that makes sense. And I think that's up to the developers to have provided that, so it's a little... It's not really what I expected. It is what I expected in regards to it actually, delivering 60 FPS and stuff. Is it a little underwhelming because the ray tracing and whatnot and the resolution targets aren't crazy? Probably, yes. That would be a big thing that I would mention. But it did exceed my expectations in the fact that it's not, really buggy, if that makes sense. It does actually perform well, it looks decently fine. I think this is a nice quality of life sort of remastering and upgrading of this experience that so many people have played so many crazy hours of. Seriously, I would imagine, some players have just leveled up, done all the business stuff, done all the story stuff, done all the missions, done all kinds of stuff. And they keep coming back for more. And I think that in itself is really quite interesting, that there is, such a draw to this that people just keep playing it. And there are so many different ways that you can travel. Cars, there's boat stuff, there's planes. If you are jumping into the single player, the story is pretty well done. A few different perspectives that you get to switch between. And that in itself is kind of exciting if you like the story mode. I mean, I don't know if people are necessarily going to want to replay it with such a, I would say, minimal change to what the gameplay is like in the story. But, if you're coming in the first time, I think the story is pretty good. But I think for most people, the real upgrade that they'll want to buy into is this online feature, this GTA Online, so that you can play with others and do random events and do random missions and get different outfits and different weapons and battle each other, do death matches, do stunt races, do regular races, do all kinds of different things. Answer your phone occasionally so people can say hello. We're going to go to the casino because we're going to show off a bit of the loading stuff. The casino is kind of a good little test for that kind of thing. But yeah, that's really what this is. It is an improvement. Is it a colossal improvement? I would say no. But at the same time, it is something that is better. The PlayStation 5 version of it, it's pretty good. You know, it all runs well. I haven't really had any issues. There were a couple of cutscenes where there were like objects that were missing, if that makes sense. And it seems like the audio is a little bit lower for dialogue, and that seems to be on both platforms, actually. A little bit of quieter dialogue on things. But I would say, you know, this is the comprehensive, definitive sort of improvement to Grand Theft Auto. But at the same time, I was really hoping for something a little bit more groundbreaking. It definitely feels like that 2013 game that is just like stretching far beyond its limits of what it should be stretching to. I mean, it still looks good for a game that old, right? It does. It actually looks pretty good for a 2013 title. But that's also because they've done little bits of improvement over the years, right? They've increased some of the quality of it. They've added new content. They've polished some things. But at the same time, I think there's so much more room also for improvement and upgrading for this experience that I hope that they do spend time pushing things a little bit further. Tech-wise, it just seems, I don't know. It doesn't quite scream to me as being, oh, this is really something you must jump in on. It's really for the enthusiasts out there, the first-time GTA players that have maybe never experienced the game. Because believe it or not, this one just keeps on selling. People just keep on jumping in and join the thrills of Grand Theft Auto action. It's wild, actually. Like 3 console generations. What an accomplishment. That actually is just absolutely stunning if you think about it. Absolutely stunning. Did I want ray trace reflections? Absolutely. Did we get them here? Sure doesn't seem like it. And I think that in itself, for me, is like kind of one of the bigger disappointment pieces. But I mean, it all runs fine. I haven't had any sort of real issues with it. It's been consistent. It looks visually good, I would say. You know, it's fine. It delivers. And that higher frame rate, for me, is the really key thing to focus on, is the fact that we finally get this at 60 FPS, and it seems just smooth the whole way through, whether you're causing mayhem, exploring, taking a look at characters. Speaking of NPCs, they look a little better. Like, they did do texturing changes, like the roads kind of look a lot better, as do some of the buildings, but like NPCs, 2013 hair, face models, maybe looking a little bit better. Some of the clothing texturing looks a little bit better. I don't know if that comes across on my character or whatnot, but it does seem to look a little bit better, but it really isn't massively changed. That's the biggest thing. Some people might look at it and be like, oh, it looks the exact same. And I would say that that in itself is kind of inaccurate, because it does look better. It does feel better to play. This is quite an upgrade over what we came from, even on the last gen with the PS4, especially going from like the PS3 up to this point. We're getting massive gains, but is it as big of a gain as we maybe should have been getting? That is a question to ask as well. So I hope you enjoyed this look at GTA 5's next-gen upgrade on the PlayStation 5. Again, like the video is great. Well, liking the video is great. And subscribing is great as well. And we'll just have a little bit more gameplay here, but Simon really needs to stop calling me. That guy is just utterly annoying. But I hope this presented the game and gave you an idea of, you know, everything, how it's looking, how it's running, how it's performing, and what it has to offer on the PlayStation side of things. Because it still has that charm to it, still has that style to it, and I think a lot of people love this experience and just want to see it upgraded for next gen, and that's kind of what we have gotten. And who knows, maybe they'll do some further improvements and we'll come back and check on those as well.